Welcome, everybody, to another week of my favorite horror movie. It's going to be a really good show tonight, a great show. We got a very special guest, first timer on the show, Chad Sumner, and we are talking about Jason Lives. This is probably, like I told him before we started, maybe my second favorite out of the series. I think this movie rocks. It's a great pick. We're also going to talk about his film, My Special Boy. So stick around. And remember, if we get to 1,000 subscribers, maybe, just maybe, we'll hire somebody to punch Gabe in the face. All right, here we go. All right, how we doing tonight, guys?
Good, man.
Excited to have you on, Chad.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
How you doing down there,
welcome.
Gabe?
Oh, I'm doing good out here. It's the start of the basketball season. Tomorrow
right.
the Bulls play.
Do you want to stay down there, or do you want to go up? Do you want to switch with Chad?
Oh no, we could have Chad upstairs there.
We'll keep it. Chad fits up top. We'll keep Chad.
Okay.
I'm a good bottom.
Jeez. But this is gonna be a really fun episode. So Chad, man, you picked Jason, and this is something that what I really love so far from everybody that we've had. They've picked really films that are near and dear to their heart, and I just want to start this off right away. Why is this one of your favorites? What's your history with Jason Lives?
Well, it introduced me to Jason, and he's been probably my favorite slasher ever since. Because of this movie. As everyone has that story as a kid, this or that happened. And I was made fun of for being tall, oddly enough. So, and everyone's got their thing, everyone's got their thing that they get made fun of. But that's the great thing about Jason's that he sort of embodied that kid. And, that might sound cliche as hell, and it kind of is, but I mean, there was a lot of kids that related to that and related to Jason. That's why Jason is, loved so much. And that's why there's a lot of Pam sympathizers, because they can, sympathize with what she did because of her son. And because of her son, he's almost like this weird anti-hero folklore hero, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I mean, even in, Freddy versus Jason, who are you really rooting for in the end? Jason?
I know. You're rooting for Jason.
I mean, and I have my issues with that movie, and I mean, overall I love it because it's just a fun time. But there are some things that I obviously Kane Hodder as Jason I would have loved to see. But one thing is that the director Ronnie Yu said is that Freddy is just more. This is not like verbatim what he said, but Freddy is just more evil, and Jason was more of a samurai that lost his mind, and he was like he still had honor and he was loyal and all that stuff, but like he lost his mind. He was going crazy. So that was always something that stuck with me. And then going back to this movie. You start off, Tommy and I forgot his buddy's name in this, but anyway, they're driving to make sure Jason's dead.
Right.
And, just what they did to bring him back, because I didn't know about the controversy, but from 5 to this until later. And then I looked it up, and then obviously you start putting the pieces together yourself the older you get, and you start making, like every movie's awesome when you're a kid, right? But then when you're older, you start putting it together, and it's like, okay. And then you start either admiring some of the things that they did and then tearing apart some of the things that they did. And that's everybody. So everyone's a critic, if you look at it, everyone's a critic. And I mean, take the new Halloween Ends, for example. I'm sure, come on. But Yeah, and speaking on that, I'm jumping all over the place, but uh, five to a lot of people was a huge letdown. And don't get me wrong, it's a fun movie and it's a great time, and I still enjoy it. It's one of my top or mid of the pack grade.
It's better than the reputation that was let on for many years.
Exactly, and it's still like very sleazy, very trashy, but that's kind of what Friday 13th was anyway. So it kind of fits in, but it still has, like you said, a reputation all its own.
Right.
So, and even today, as much as I do like that movie and enjoy that movie, the ending was absolute dog shit. Like, let's come on. Um, and anyway, but what they were going to tell in 6 originally, and we'll talk about that later, but McLaughlin was going to introduce Elias, and that would have introduced a whole new, possibilities, because in 5, they're talking about he gets cremated.
Exactly.
And then, oh, how is he, and we'll go into more detail, but, was that a dream? Was that, all bullshit, whatever, but just everything that Tom McLaughlin did, because after 5 films, you have to do something different. And yeah, it's a 6th film, and it's sad that this is the one that really got, like, arguably really good, but 3 and 4 are really good in their own rights too, and all that shit. But I just appreciate everything McLaughlin brought to this and tried to reinvent the franchise. And because even I watched that Camp Crystal Lake Memories all the time, and it's like 4 hour 6 hour documentary.
It's long. It's really good.
Yeah, it's really good, and I really enjoy stuff like that, and really getting in depth behind what happened, because dude, I really wish I would have been able to be there on every set. That would have been awesome.
The thing
Anyway.
about no, like piggybacking off what you said, there was this template in this guide that the producers had for these movies to make them completely like money each time. Like they knew exactly what kids wanted. And 5 does give you what you want, but it doesn't follow the formula of it's Jason. It's everything else is the same, but that very minor detail, a big detail, but I mean minor in the grand scheme of things. But to go back to what you said, the way this movie's directed is so good. And it does bring something new because it feels like a classic Universal monster movie, which is everything that he set out to do. Was I want to put on a movie that if I want to make one that if you put it in black and white, like you would think this is something from 1931. This is Frankenstein. Uh, that's what this movie feels like. The opening of this movie feels exactly like it feels like something out of a Universal monster movie. So I'm with you, man. This movie is, I think, holds up the most for me just because of how funny it is, but the story is so classic in how it's told. So
yeah,
it
absolutely.
brings up one of my first questions, right? And that's what do you think about how they brought back Jason and the resurrection? Because obviously, like you said earlier, fans really disliked Part 5, right?
Right.
There was no Jason, right? And they're like, we want Jason back. So studio's like, all right, we got to find a way to bring him back. So what do you think about that opening sequence on bringing Jason back, how he was brought back to life?
Oh, I love it. I mean, homage to Frankenstein,
Right.
I love Tom Matthews, who, shameless plug, is a producer on My Special Boy. Anyway, he's got the cast iron, bar off the thing, and he's stabbing him, going crazy, and he leaves it in there. And, it's already rainy. I mean, it's got great atmosphere in this movie. It feels cold. It feels damp from the get-go. And it's like, that's people say that's a character all itself. It really is in this movie. Like you can, like when they're driving later on in the movie, going, in and out of the, down the road, and you see the question mark, or what was it, like, the end or something, question mark, or fun. And it's like, what the fuck? But you can just tell, you see the, the wind blowing, you see leaves going, and it just feels cold throughout the whole movie. And it's great. And that just adds to it. The RV scene, you can see, on the highway, it's kind of like slick, so it's been
Right.
damp, and so it really adds to that. And I just had a great time with it. I loved it the first time I saw it, and I have a great time every time I see it to this day. So it still holds up, and it's inspired uh like a whole other genre of horror, which is like Scream, whatever.
Yeah, like you said,
Right.
that
So I
very
mean,
the meta humor, right? Like that
yeah,
meta humor that
yeah,
we see in
yeah.
Scream um and films of that nature in the 90s that really took off. This is like one of the first ones to do it, breaking the fourth wall and
Hmm.
setting up the tropes, but also letting you know we know these are tropes. Like
Right.
the grave digger. Like who would want to do something like that? Like some folks have a twisted sense of like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's so many
Twisted sense of
moments in that.
humor.
Yes, yeah, like there's so many moments that just work in here where Tom McLaughlin uh like you could tell
Hmm.
he likes the other movies, but what can I do to make it seem like this is a movie I would have wanted to see as a kid,
Hmm.
and movies that kids would like this would be their introduction to it. This is almost like the
Right.
perfect introduction if you're showing like a 10-year-old or 11-year-old what a Jason movie is,
Right.
Right.
because it kind of reboots itself in a way where we start off with the resurrection and it's off to the races.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, it could
So
easily been the first PG-13 Jason movie, and
right,
all they had to do was take out a few, F word,
right,
and that's it, because there's no nudity, nothing like that. They have a
yeah,
sex scene, but
it's very
same.
humorous.
it's very
Right.
Disney Channel
Yes.
compared to what we got even
They
in
could
the
have got away with it,
the
you know.
previous film.
Right.
So yeah, they could have, but
If
So you
Rodney
guys have
Danger
been.
if
I was
Rodney
just saying.
Dangerfield can get away with boobs and Back to School, this movie totally could have got away with something.
right, yeah, it could have.
So you guys have been talking about this movie being self-aware. So would you say this is like the first entry of the horror comedy for this? Would you consider Jason 13 like horror comedy genre level?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because even Tom Matthews' performance, it's not like real goofy, but like he kind of plays it very down the middle. He can go serious and kind of,
It's like so
almost
straight.
slapstickish,
It's so
almost kind
straight
of.
that it's comical, right? So when he's
Right.
so serious, so when slapstick things happen to him or like just terrible things, he sounds crazy and he looks crazy, and that's part of the humor there. Yeah.
Right. And in the whole thing with Megan in the car, she
Right.
puts his head down. It's like it's just a fun, and the things they're saying, and it's just it the paintball scene. I mean, that's uh, most of the actors in that scene, I think all of them from that were in the same mime class that Tom McLaughlin was. Tom McLaughlin was a mime and stuff when, early days or whatever, but he knew all of them from, being a mime. So they were, to be a mime, you have to be comedic. You have to sell,
Right.
yourself pretty much being a goof.
Right.
So, that's where it kind of, in the music playing, it's kind of goofy, but then you got Jason, who's, just,
Right.
he's like the ultimate straight man, no matter what. Even in a, when he tries to be serious, sometimes he looks a little comedic. I mean, what slasher doesn't from time to time, but
But that's so cool about McLaughlin in this too, is that it feels homemade. Like he has his wife in the movie in a very humorous scene.
yep,
Again, it's very meta. She references the tropes of slasher
yeah,
movies. I thought that was so cool. Everything about it just feels like there's a not that there wasn't a vision in the other movies, there clearly is, but for the first time, it feels like a real horror fan is directing this, which is funny because he had no idea Tom Matthews did Return of the Living Dead. It was just a coincidence. The producers picked him because of that movie, but he had not even seen the movie
oh
when they were
wow,
making this. I thought that was so crazy. I figured I'm like he must have seen that movie then, but I read in production notes that was not something he had even thought of when he
wow,
got him in the movie. Yeah,
that's crazy. Considering back then there were really, I mean, there were a lot, but like that was pretty mainstream for back then. So
exactly.
I mean, that's funny that but I mean, that just goes to show how things go sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes a very popular film or what we thought was popular, maybe it wasn't so popular back then, and never even crossed their minds, which is
Yeah.
crazy to me.
Yeah, and they both share a very, to me at least, very similar tone, a very similar star. I don't know. Yeah, like I feel like around 85 and onwards, we saw this revamp of the horror comedy. That maybe like
Yeah.
before that, you can't really think of anything besides like again the Abbott and Costello stuff from the 50s, and then the 80s you have Fright Night, you have House, you have Jason Lives.
So
And that
many.
really, there's like so many. Night of the
Yeah.
Demons, I would throw on there. That's comedic to me
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh for sure. Um
but
dude, I mean, what a time though, the 80s.
I I think
I
what
mean,
was so
yeah,
cool around that time is they were taking risk. They were playing by the rules, but taking a risk at the same time with a lot of these things. Especially
exactly.
with this, this does break a lot of the rules while still being a Jason movie, and I think that's so cool. Um, and even like
And
having the
rewriting its own rules to be,
rewriting its own
yeah,
rules.
to be
You
fair.
still have the camp counselors, you still have the kids. This is also one that you feel like the kids are in danger in
Yeah.
some sense, and I love that. I mean, we get the famous line, the dead meat line, you know. So
Oh yeah. I mean, inspired, Dead
inspired
Meat, which
James,
is a
right?
lot of people's favorite,
Right.
YouTube series. But I
After
think
us, of
this was
course.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jeez. Um uh but that's a good point about the kids. I think this was the first one with actual kids at the camp.
At the camp, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean that kind of upped the stakes, and that was like a different dynamic, which I love personally. And we'll talk about that later when it comes to Sheriff Garris. But uh, that's my hero of this movie. As much as I love Tom Matthews and Tommy Jarvis in this movie, I mean they're both like right there to me. I mean they're back and forth, and like that's
Well,
another
he's
thing
so
why I love this movie. The dynamic. One is they're both heroes, but one is trying to do what he thinks is the right thing by covering it up and being quiet about it, getting him out of town, not trying to stir shit up, and not take his claim seriously just because of who he is. And I guess there were some allusions to him being kind of crazy or not, crying wolf or whatever it was. Maybe not to the degree that it was in 5, but I don't know. Like I said, that could have just been, a dream to them. It's a bad dream. We're moving on, or they just completely retconned it. It's hard to really say.
So
Um,
I want to talk about that because I was reading so much about production, and the resurrection of Jason is like a lot of people can say is very inconsistent, right? Like the cremation thing,
yeah.
and you brought up Jason's father, which is something that they wanted to put in this movie. Producers
Hmm.
shut that down, and it would have been that Jason's father was never had him cremated, and he paid the gravedigger to make
Yeah.
sure that he was buried, which could have been very cool had that been in this movie. And that's something that fans have been waiting for. I know there was many interpretations of films that never got made with that character. Uh, and
Hmm.
I think it really would have fit tonally in this movie and built upon the mythology that they had reset.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I would have loved to see something like that happen. But even the producer, uh, uh,
I think I have his
Frank,
name right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Not Mancini, but it'll come to me anyway.
Frank Mancuso? Frank Mancuso. Yeah,
Mancuso. Thank you,
that's his
Frank
name.
Mancuso. He even said he didn't want to introduce something like that 6 films in to where they have to like explain this new character. He didn't
Right.
want that, and he didn't want the focus off of Jason, which I understand, but like still after 5 films already, pull the trigger. But I understand it was still the 80s. They still had their formula, I guess. But I really wish they would have added it because they did include him in a lot of like graphic novel, comic book continuations, um, and the Vengeance fan films. I think
That's right.
what we got in those, because Tom McLaughlin is attached to those. He is a part of those. He was even I think he was the Gravedigger in the first one.
And doesn't man, correct me if I'm wrong. Does CJ Graham, doesn't he play Jason's dad? Okay.
Yes, and CJ Graham, who was Jason in part 6, plays
Right.
Elias. So of course, with those two being a part of it, I'm pretty sure they're both in 2 as well. I haven't watched it yet, but
I'm pretty sure I saw a trailer of both of them in it, or at least a
okay.
scene of both of them in it. But yes.
Oh, really? Oh, that would be cool. That would be really cool to watch. But
actually, yes, because Darcy shared the male girl. She shared a little behind the scenes photo of her in the autopsy room.
Oh, right. Okay.
When I think they're in it, but yeah,
okay.
That's crazy. It's kind of perfect casting too that they got CJ Graham to do that.
Right. So, I mean, I fully believe that that's what we would have gotten if we got Elias in Jason Lives, which is actually really, really cool. And I wish they would have, but of course, that's not how it went. But yeah, anyway, the mayor in part 5, he's like, oh, he's been cremated. He's nothing but a handful of ash. Elias, it was heavily assumed that he paid off the Gravedigger and he got the body, and maybe they burned up Roy's body.
Right.
Maybe that's who got cremated. Who knows? Because from what we got, he just abandoned his family and left his handicapped son at that place, and then went nuts. So who knows what no one missed him. No one probably identified him. So who knows? But yeah, I could totally buy that. And I love Jason so much. I'm not ashamed to say that being such a Jason fanboy, I'm just going to accept it anyway. They could have said, they could have, well, okay. Speaking of resurrections, let's not mention Jason Goes to Hell, because that's the only thing that they shouldn't have done. How the fuck is that slug gonna pop up out of the basement with his clothes back on, his mask, and just okay. But anyway, I'll take him getting struck by lightning 9 out of 10 times. So, I loved it, and it was an homage to Frankenstein. So I'll take it.
Exactly. How about you, Gabe? What else you got, man? What other questions have you cooked up for us tonight?
Oh man, you guys have been just talking and answering my questions as I've been going after here. Let's see. One of I guess I'll just ask the one of the most basic ones. What's your favorite kill in this movie?
Ooh, that's a great one.
Sheriff Garris. There's a lot. There's a lot. The RV, the chick getting her face, shoved through the thing, and the goofiness of I think her name was Cece, getting her head twisted all the way around. Deputy Handsome getting his head crushed. There's a few. What's his name getting his heart punched out at the very beginning? Tommy's friend. I always forget his name in this. I always want to call him Rorschach.
What is his name? Is
Hawes.
it? What is it?
Hawes.
Hawes?
Hawes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Hawes gets his heart punched out. There's a bit, but like I touched on earlier, Garris is just as much the hero as Tommy, I feel, in this movie. And as much as he's fighting Tommy to not spread, like I touched on, hysteria and corrupt his daughter Megan and little Megan and all this, he's still trying to be the stand-up guy that he is deep down. And he is one of those rare pure cops that we get in a horror movie. Like we get a lot out there, but he is like, he is such a good dude. He will do the things that we saw to keep everyone safe, whether that's the ultimate right thing to do or not. That's what he thinks he's doing to save everybody. And I respect that, but he goes and he gets the kids, he's getting them out of Dodge. And then he hears Megan calling out and he's just like, nah, fuck that. That's my daughter. So he tackles Jason, and he's going to town on him, and I'm like, fuck yeah. As much as I love Jason, I'm just like, fucking get him. And then he shoots him a couple times, and he ultimately loses, but then he gets folded, and he gets folded back like a card table. And I really wish we got the uncut version of that kill, because a lot of the kills got cut down, as a lot of them did in the series leading up to
just
this.
like part 7, right? Like 6 and 7 are both famous for being cut so badly.
Right.
Yeah, seven's infamous for that
Right.
in the series, unfortunately. But this one, to a point. I mean, the beheading scene, the paintball, the 3 paintballers, that was supposed to be much more elaborate. We were supposed to see a lot more than what we got, instead of just their knees buckling, their heads just falling, and us not really seeing what it was. And then but anyway, it was really the most emotional death, and I love that stuff. I mean, Cotton Weary from Scream 3. That's such a huge death for me, because of how meaningful it was. If you dissect that death, there's a lot of different meanings. I mean, he could have, if he was such a scumbag that everyone thought he was, I would have given up Sydney. Like, yeah, she's in the hills somewhere. Go get her. Shit, I don't want to die. But he didn't.
He's one of the best characters in that series, because the way he's set up is so minor, and you bring him back for part 2, so it's already there. The history, and he's awesome. Like, Liev Schreiber is so good in the second movie, and then by the time again, that third kill, and it goes back to one of my favorite things in horror movies, where I want to care about the characters that do eventually get killed, and 6 does do that so well. So that's a great example, because the sheriff in this is sort of weary of what Tommy is doing, but he still kind of believes him. Like, when he tells him, please check the grave, he does it, but obviously he's made to look crazy. Like, he's still trying to protect this town, do the right thing, protect his daughter, who's a major thought. Megan's for the streets, but it's fine. It's fine. She's thirsting after Tommy. This kid's, on paper crazy, but she's like really thirsty for him.
Crazies that attract the girls, man.
Like Allison from Ends.
Right. For like Allison. Allison is like, she's trying to get her action on with this crazy kid, this 25-year-old chocolate milk drinker. But yeah, no, I think that's the
Yoo-hoo. Yeah, Yoo-hoo.
It wasn't even called Yoo-hoo. It was like off-brand Yoo-hoo.
Yeah. Hoo-hoo.
But yeah, man, that's my favorite thing about horror movies. I mean, some of the best, that's what you get out of it, right? That's why I love this one, part 4, part 2. Those are characters that I think of and I really enjoy, and then when they get what's coming to them, it sucks. It's cool because Jason's doing it, but it sucks because, like, oh man, that character died. But he's got one of the best deaths in the series because it's so heroic. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, that's why. And there's a lot of parallels between him and Cotton. Like we just said, there's a lot of similarities. And instead of doing the same things that Garrus did, that was everything that happened to him. And they still went out the same. And anyway, that's a whole different topic for another day. But yeah, man. And that just showed how good he was, and how much of a hero he truly was in the end. And I love characters like that. And this is probably, along with Meeker from Halloween 4 and 5, this is probably my favorite horror movie sheriff. Like, hands down.
He does something, right? He gives a shit. It's not just like,
he's not slightly crooked like a lot of them turn out to be.
Right.
Slightly an asshole. Like, okay, some of them are good, but they're still kind of an asshole. Right. And the 80s, even though a lot were heroes, there were still quite a bit of assholes who were heroes too. So it's like, okay, but yeah, it was. I love shit like that. I love emotional deaths that you're supposed to feel. And like I said, 6 movies in, It's like, holy shit, like that was a damn, you felt something in that one. You kind of felt something for everyone because like you said, like you touched on earlier, Tony, the characters are so uh uh incredibly written and you care about all of them. Even uh uh
Is it Court?
Court, yeah, thank
Yeah.
you, Court.
John
I'm
Travolta's nephew, by the way. I
John
just found this
Travolta's
out.
nephew, which is very yeah, very very funny. Tom friendly,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Great character. Court is that goofball, lovable guy. What are you doing back there, taking a dump? And he's got a cool death too. He takes a knife right to the temple. Flipped, which is an iconic scene. Flips the RV and then obviously leads to Jason popping up and standing on top of the RV while it's on fire. And that one of the best visuals that we'll ever get, and not just Friday 13th, but of all horror movies.
Well, what's so cool about that is Tom shoots it not like a horror scene. It's like
Mhm.
he jumps out and it's a hero shot. We're looking up at him and he looks like a fucking superhero.
Yeah, like
The
that's
way he's
Batman.
crafted,
Yeah,
it's like Batman or something. It's like the way it's crafted, like he's jumping out of there like the Incredible Hulk.
yeah,
But yeah, I wanted to make sure we highlight that scene because it's really cool how they film it. The the action back and forth with the RV and crashing, and then him on
yeah,
top. One of the
yeah.
coolest Jason moments for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm convinced that inspired Nolan to do every time that Christian Bale got out of the fight. He did one of those. It's like, yeah, that's supposed to be Jason, bitch. But um, and I mean, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the James Bond intro. I mean, that right there, that should have that was like a
Right.
wink and a nod to everybody. Like, this is Jason. Everyone knows Jason is. I'm sorry, Michael, but your newest trilogy has kind of hurt you. Sorry, buddy, you COVID getting fucker. But Jason's the king. I mean, he's got the most kills. He's got the most inventive kills. He's got arguably the most fun kills that you'll see. Maybe not the most fun. There's been quite a bit.
He's probably got the biggest body count. I don't know what the number would be.
It's in the 100,000s. He killed an entire planet.
Yeah, right.
He killed director David Cronenberg, so there's that too.
Cronenberg, yeah. Oh, geez. That was great. Of all the movies to cameo in, Cronenberg,
Right.
you chose fucking X.
Jason X. Out of everything.
Which is polarizing in its own way because some people absolutely love it for the fact you can put it on Halloween, have a bunch of people over. Me too, man. And just have a good time. You can have a drinking game or smoking game to it. Doesn't matter.
I make people mad when I tell them Jason X is in my top 5, maybe even top 3 of Friday the 13th movies. I just love it that much.
It's with a lot of them, man. I mean, takes Manhattan. I mean, as shitty of a movie that is, that's a lot of fun.
You know what it is though. You mentioned Jason has so many iconic moments. I feel like each and every one of these movies has at least one great horror history moment. And Takes Manhattan, not a great movie. It's a bit of a slog to get to the good stuff when he's running through the streets. We have this great fight scene. Where this dude thinks he could fucking box. He's doing some Mike Tyson shit, dodging, and then Jason, boom, head flies off.
Knocks his head off. Yeah. Which happy birthday to VC Dupree, who boxed Jason on top of there. But yeah, that when Jason washes up on shore, he gets up, and he sees the hockey mask on the thing, kind of tilts his head. And of course, him downtown New York, that scene where he's just standing there. And the way Kane explains it in the documentary gives me chills because that's, as someone who played Jason in a fan film or not, and someone who would love to play Jason on the big screen, that would be the moment right there. You have a bunch of screaming fans in New York City, downtown New York, Times Square and you just look over and they go ape shit while you're filming a scene. And that, I mean, I understand that it gets shit. Oh, that's not New York, or that's not Manhattan. You know, that's Vancouver, Canada, whatever,
Right.
wherever they film some of it. But I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if they spent all their other, all their budget for that scene alone, just for that icon, like you said, iconic scene, just to go with the rest of them from this franchise and horror history in general. Damn. But anyway, that's not the movie we're talking about. Sorry for straggling off.
Oh man, we're talking all things Jason. Man.
No, and you make a really good point, because I think you said it earlier, right? And I feel like Jason has always had like he never grew mentally, in a sense. So he in every movie it feels like he has some like childlike wonder. Like he's always looking and staring at something, like catches his eye, like in some sort of like fascination. Like you said,
Yeah.
when Jason goes to New York, right? When he's standing in the middle of Times Square and he's looking around, he has
Yeah.
that childlike wonder to him. So he's
Yeah.
always seemed not as vicious as Freddy, but not as psychopathic as Michael Myers. He's just like stuck in he's like a man stuck in a child's body in some way.
Yeah, he's still a 10-year-old boy, just
And
doing what
very
mommy tells him to do.
Right, and you very much have to get in his way, right? Like he's this force of nature just bulldozing
Yeah.
through. And if you get in his way, you're fucked.
Yeah, he's
Essentially
just
that.
he's just a guard dog who's
Yeah,
very dedicated to his job. Yeah, that's his medical stuff. So come on. But yeah, I mean,
don't mess with his weed.
and really, and that's a good point. You said that because he's not a Michael, targeting young girls or whatever his motives ultimately were. We still don't fucking know. Thank you. Which is fine, because that makes it scary that we don't know exactly what his motives were. Freddy was a child killer. That's terrible in itself. I ignore fucking what they tried to say in the remake, that he was a pedophile. Fuck that. It's bad enough that he was a child murderer. Let's just leave it at that. And other, villains always have an ulterior motive. Well, like you said, Jason doesn't. He's just protecting his home.
And he wasn't born evil. He was a dude that, like,
right.
something super tragic happens to him as a child.
Exactly. Right. And again, that's why
mom being beheaded.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why he, along with Leatherface to a point, are the most sympathetic, to me, some of the most sympathetic horror characters. You got others like Candyman and a couple of, I can't name all the ones off the top of my head, but you got others. But Jason was one of the big four to do it the best, I think, and that's why he has so many fans. Again, because he's the ultimate anti-hero. Yeah. He's Darth Vader with Emperor Palpatine, Pamela in his ear. There's a reason they both start with Pa. I mean, come on. I mean, that's a bad joke, but anyway.
It's a good comparison though, man, because he is a little different. I mean, I guess on the surface level, at that time in the 80s, critics could have made the comparison like there's no difference. They're all the same. They just hack up a bunch of teenagers that like to have sex. But I feel like the filmmakers were building something to make him different. And the more supernatural he got, that's where shit gets a bit more interesting, right? Because Michael was born, he was a bad seed. He was born fucking evil.
Right.
Freddy Krueger was murdering children. These are all the points that he made. He was evil. There's something with Jason that's a little bit more tragic and different.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I go back to the Darth Vader thing, because look at Freddy versus Jason. It's happened to him twice, I guess you can say, if people want to think that Pamela's in his head, which I believe, wink, wink. But then you got that one where it happens to him again. You got now Freddy in the Emperor role, who's manipulating him into coming back and to just kill. And he thinks it's his mom. And again, he's he's still that 10-year-old boy who is challenged. He has his issues, and he's going to do what his mom tells him to do to a fault. Or there's this other theory, which a lot of people like to, where he is cursed. He's just cursed. That's why you can't kill him. He keeps coming back, and he might not want to kill you, but he has to. Like the thorn almost. That's a little bit. I can accept that one. If that's what it was, I can accept it. But I like to think, that he's still the same 10-year-old boy, the samurai that went crazy, extremely loyal to his mom, and ultimately he's the Darth Vader of horror because he's being manipulated by who he was raised in his short original life, whether he actually drowned or not. There's some, like you said, who he saw his mom be beheaded. That he's just still loyal to her and will do anything that she will say, because in his short life, if it was up to that point, he was what, 10, 11, something like that, wherever that age range. So another comparison, Bobby Boucher from Waterboy. And his crazy, right? I mean, his crazy mom.
Good.
So I mean, I'm gonna grab parallels from everywhere. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna I'll go down fighting for Jason. But yeah, I mean, whichever way you want it, at the end of the day, he's still like the wounded samurai. He's just samurai that went crazy. He's very loyal. He's got honor like a motherfucker. And sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but
yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. But yeah, he's my boy, and I'd love to see another Freddy versus Jason and see him beat the shit out of Freddy again, or whoever, Pinhead, anybody. Because
I think Gabe would love to see Freddy get his ass beat.
Even in a Freddy versus Michael, a fucking Jason versus Michael movie, people 9 times out of 10, whether they're a Halloween fanboy or Friday fanboy, they're probably going to root for Jason.
Probably. Yeah.
I mean,
the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash storyline, bring that in.
Dude, that would.
They tried.
Oh, they did, and that's what we got in the comic book series. What would have ultimately happened?
We could just 3 of us here, just do it on our own. Do our own little film of Freddy and Jason and Ash.
I might know some people who made a Friday 13th fan film. Actually, I'll have to think about that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
I want to ask you one of Gabe's, because we ran through everything without even looking at the questions. Pretty much.
Basically all the questions that I wrote down here, with the section of maybe 1 or 2, we've just been answering just as we've been talking here.
So okay, here's one, Gabe, that you wrote down. And I want to reference the chat real quick, because I know on Tuesdays we really don't, but I want to thank everybody for watching, sticking around. I see a bunch in here. Travis joined us again, talking about the cotton theory.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, to mention that cotton death, man, I saw the extended version online, and it's very good. But yeah, everybody's in here talking about Fredley and the Karate Kid. He was in the Karate Kid. He was one of the friends, the shitty friends that Daniel has for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
There's some guy asked you. He said you sound like Evan Peters. Chad sounds like Evan Peters.
Cool. Okay.
I don't hear it.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'll take that.
Happy birthday, VC and
VC.
JCVD. Happy birthday, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Wow.
And R.I.P. Ted White.
Yeah, one of the best.
Yes. But I wanted to ask, this is something that Gabe put on here. Would you have liked to see the Tommy story continue on the big screen after this movie?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because he's the closest to a Laurie Strode that we get. I mean, I like Alice. She's the OG. I really like Alice. I'm an Alice defender. Um, I love Ginny from part two. I really
I
wish she
love
came back.
Right.
Oh man, that
That's
would have been
my pick. I
awesome.
think Ginny is my favorite. I like Chris Higgins too, but I think Ginny had
Yeah,
something very similar to Laurie. The way that
yeah.
character was played was so raw, and the horror when she discovers everything is like in that third act is very
Mhm.
much like a Laurie Strode. I would have loved to seen that character brought back.
Yeah, same. That was yeah. That's she's probably my favorite final girl of this franchise, maybe. But yeah, he's the closest to the franchise hero that we have.
Right.
The only thing that goes against him is that he was played by three different actors, unfortunately. Everyone loves Corey Feldman's portrayal. Maybe not Corey Feldman, but they love his portrayal. Um, and I like it because it was an homage to Tom Savini, who worked on the original Friday. Like a lot of people don't realize, like they want to give Jason a lot of shit for being the trashy franchise, but that was Tom Savini who started it. He was in 1 and 4, so just saying. But yeah, his first one was an homage to Tom. Second one is not my favorite Tom or Tommy. Uh, I just I see what they were going for, but it's just not my favorite Tommy. I'm glad they didn't continue that version of him. I do like the way he played him. John, is it John Shepard? I think something like that. But
He was great, and I know he gets a lot of shit, but I think
yeah,
he wasn't the issue. It was mainly, like you said, the story surrounding where they went with Tommy.
yeah, because I mean he didn't have a lot to work with, and I love from the documentary where I guess he wrote his own ending. I guess back then the actors were just writing their own end scenes or something. I don't know. That was always weird to me. I don't know the full story behind that because I don't think he's credited as a writer or a producer. So that was always weird to me. But anyway, he's like, yeah, he wrote out this whole end scene, this whole like monologue that he was gonna say, and he takes it to the director. He's like, what are you doing? You don't talk the whole movie, and you got all this. You're like, what? And he just like crossed it all out, and they condensed it a lot. But just yeah, just a weird. I mean, from what he was given, like I said, it really and given what other actors and actresses have said from being on that set, that there wasn't a whole lot of directing going on. So if you got your actors writing their own scenes, like I said, he wasn't given a whole lot to work with. So for that, it was an okay performance, but definitely not my favorite. This one, Tom Matthews, it was an awesome performance. It's you know another comparison. Brendan Fraser from the Mummy franchise, Rick O'Connell, who can play the straight goofy man. He can be serious at times, which I love in part two, where he's walking down the corridor all pissed off after he thinks Evie's dead. But then he can be goofy. He has his goofy moments. There's some scenes where I'm like, oh, wait, okay, this isn't George of the Jungle. It's still okay. It's Mummy. That's right. Okay, right. Okay, let's go. But he can play both, and he does a great job. And Tom is a lot like that. He can play both in the same movie and go back and forth. So a lot of it is kind of, there are parts where he's a little comedic, and like you said, he's so straight that it's funny.
Right.
Because he's trying to play it so straight. But ultimately that's the type of horror fan I am. I like the adventure road movie, you know, kind of Goonies, Mummy type horror.
You like the fun popcorn. You want fun popcorn, and that's what
Yeah,
this
but
movie very much is. It's a fun popcorn movie with a great character.
exactly.
Yeah.
And also, give me some, some more horror. You can ramp
Yes.
up the horror definitely tenfold. Do gory, do all that,
Right.
uh the Evil Dead franchise. That's over the top, gory and goofy, but it's a great fun time, So yeah. I would have definitely loved to have seen more movies with this Tommy leading them.
Right.
Maybe, I mean, of course, like we said, this is 6 movies in. If they did it a little bit earlier, absolutely. Give me another 2, maybe 3 more movies with him. At least give him a solid trilogy of him in at least 3, and then call it, because I mean, how much can you really do at that point and keep it fresh? And like, what are you gonna do? Keep rebooting it? Keep Laurie Stroding us? Like I was a big Laurie Strode fan, and now I never want to see Laurie Strode in a Halloween movie ever again. But I
And
would have
hopefully we
taken
don't.
a solid trilogy from him as Tommy for sure. So
Never say never on Laurie Strode.
Oh, I
I
agree
mean,
with Chad. Actually, I think you know we let Jamie Lee have her swan song. It's over. It's done. I think you can do Halloween without Laurie Strode. I think you could do. I've said this. You can do Halloween without Michael Myers, but nobody
That's
wants
your
to.
fate to people. Not
yeah.
yourself.
I
The
mean,
shape is the shape. You don't really need to call him anything. Like he's
I
a dude
mean,
with a mask that shows up to town and murders everybody.
evil never dies; it only changes shape.
There you go.
And if Corey's eyes would have opened at that moment, I would have bought that. I would have said, okay, fuck it, sign me up for 3 more. He's in fucking Allison's trunk, or he's in the back, like hiding like Fez when they went on the beer run to Canada, So I mean, come on, because I mean, okay, if that was the case, I would have bought their little bond and him transferred his evil into him, and them having some weird orgasm / special moment while killing Doug and looking deep into each other's eyes. We're like,
It was
heavy
a lot of
grunting going on.
male bonding.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Is
But
that what male bonding is just killing people?
I guess
Two
I get
dudes
that.
passionately killing this overweight middle-aged cop.
Hey, it's 2022. That's what circle jerks have progressed to, man. That's what it is now. You get stabbed.
I love the 2022.
I love that. I would have bought that if they fucking fully pulled the trigger. I would have bought that a lot more, and I would have been like, okay, cool, sign me up. Fuck it, let's go.
I would be with you on that. But the internet is the Wild West right now with this movie.
Again, dude.
If they committed to Corey just being 100%, the final villain, and Michael's done. Oh man, I don't even know what this week would have looked like, because it's already a shit show. But
people could still accept the fact that that was Michael, and here's how, for me personally. Anyway, he transferred himself in there. That's Michael. When the dad says he pulled up to him and said when he bent down to look into the car, that wasn't him. That wasn't the same kid that mowed my lawn, because that's fucking Michael. Michael's in the suit. He's killing those kids at the junkyard. That's Michael. And he opens his eyes at the end, and evil never dies. It only changes shape. That's not Corey. That's Michael. He's just now in Corey's body, but he puts the mask back on. We never see Corey again,
right,
maskless, because that's Michael. People will still accept that's Michael. That is what Jason Goes to Hell was probably going for. But this movie would have said, okay, cool, fuck you, we're actually going to do it. We're actually going to do that, combine that with A New Beginning, and say, fuck you, we're going to do Roy better. And they could have, and they didn't.
Listen, when I talk about like a Freddy reboot, I've always told Tony this: you don't need Freddy Krueger. Freddy's become a nightmare demon. He's become a sleep demon.
Yeah,
sleep demons can possess other people.
Exactly.
And there you go. You have a new Nightmare on Elm Street without using Robert Englund, and you have a new type of Freddy.
Yeah, but I mean, look at Hellraiser.
That's true.
I
Hellraiser is a
mean,
great
come
example.
on.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
give me a
people are
female
so
dream demon. I'll take that. I don't mind. Give me
right,
that.
but people are so ingrained. Like I get it. You love these franchises, right? You love Friday the 13th. You love Michael Myers, Halloween. You love
Yeah.
they just can't see anything past the original
Hmm.
you know killer.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, it's 20 years,
Yeah.
30, 40 years later. Like we need to change
Yeah.
things up.
Yeah, Candyman, I thought did a great job. He can
That's
carry it on
true.
for another. I really hope they make
Dude, the
a
way they
couple
did those
more.
puppets at the beginning and explained the entire Candyman stuff, I
I
was
loved
like,
it.
that's all I
It was
needed.
great. Yeah, it
I
was
get you. I'm on
awesome.
board.
Yeah, and we see him at the end. Like that was a great passing of the torch. That's how you do it. And they're giving that movie shit and saying Jordan Peele's over, or yeah, he didn't direct it, but he produced it, and I'm sure he had a hand in writing some of it. Maybe, I don't know. I would like to think, or made some creative decisions, but
Right.
the way I forget her name. I'm bad with names. The director, but she did a
Oh,
great fucking job.
Nia DaCosta. Yeah, she's great.
Nia, yeah, Nia DaCosta. I thought she did a great fucking job. She paid homage to the lore. She expanded on the lore for sure, and I hope they keep it going because that was a great passing of the torch. That's what
Even
we need.
the imagery and the music of that movie is you hear
Yeah,
those little notes in the beginning, and it's like, oh, you're right back in Cabrini Green. This is Candyman.
yeah, yeah,
Even like I get what you're saying. I think they can do that. They could certainly do that with Friday the 13th. They tried. There's
yeah,
scripts out there that have been written since 2013 that do expand on the lore. Like Nick Antosca tried making Friday, or he wrote Friday the 13th, and never happened.
mhm,
Uh,
yeah,
the writer of Prisoners did a version where it was Pamela is the killer, and the second half was Eli is the killer, and the
yeah,
third act would have been Jason is the killer. It's interesting, and there's
yeah.
people out there that want to try making these movies, but I guess that's another story too. Like, what happens to Friday the 13th? Like,
That's where fan films come into play. There's a lot of continuations of a lot of these classic, certain films, like Roseblood, a continuation of Part 7. You got the Never Hikes, which I think are direct sequels to this one, Jason Lives,
yeah,
because Tom Matthews appears in that. He's worked as Tommy Jarvis. He's working as an ambulance driver, I think, at the time, a paramedic. But the Vengeance or other continuations of Part 6. I'm pretty sure Part 4, Part 6, one of the two.
right.
And My Special Boy, which is
Well, let's talk about My Special Boy. Let's transition. It's a good
okay.
transition,
Good
honestly.
transition there.
Okay.
That's a good transition, man.
Yeah,
Chat with us a little bit
that
about My
wasn't
Special Boy.
intentional, but um, I think early on we sold it as kind of like Halloween 2018. We sold it as a sequel to the very first film, but now after numerous meetings and production meetings and actually seeing what we have now in final film and being on set, and it's like, oh, this is okay, this is more of like a reboot. This feels more of like a light reboot of sorts. People will take it however they want, and that's fine with me. You can take it as either a direct sequel to the first one or a light reboot. And honestly, I think I'm leaning towards light reboot maybe, but we'll see in what 10 days, 11 days, something like that. October 28th, everyone on YouTube. But yeah, I'm excited for everyone to see this. October 28th, like I said, it comes out after 2 long years, putting this together, having COVID hit, all that shit, having to wait, having, filming, and then having 10 months in between the next time we went to camera because of COVID, and not locking down this, like not locking down that because of COVID, and not knowing because we're waiting on people to answer us. It was a lot. It made me realize that no one sets out to make a bad movie. unless you're making Jeepers Creepers Reborn. But no one sets out to make a shitty movie. So I have a lot more respect for movies because of this movie. And I I'm excited for people to see this. The feedback on the trailer, the last two trailers we've done, which are the more official trailers, have been really good. Just hope that it lives up to everyone's expectations. But what I kind of was saying earlier, that's the great thing about these fan films, because no matter what your fandom is, because ultimately, yeah, you have movies that divide people. There's movies in this franchise that divided people. I mean, this movie divides people.
Right.
But ultimately, you love Jason, and you're going to tune in and watch him because this is just a different fan's perspective. And at first, I kind of looked at fan films like, okay, it's just amateur type stuff. I didn't really understand at first, but then I was like, oh, okay, this is how it goes. Like, this is like guerrilla style fucking. This is like what it kind of was in the 80s, because we stayed at camp. We stayed at a cabin. Like most of the cast and crew were up on cabins where we shot, and it's just a cool experience. And they are fan films and they're made by fans, but 90% of our actors and actresses were from LA trying to be actors and actresses who have, I see them all the time. They're booking, commercials and all this other stuff. Like, one of our guys was in the newest Nicki Minaj music video. He played a Ken doll. Another
Working.
is no, he was sitting in the he was the denim cowboy sitting in the beach chair when the soda fizzes out. Another guy is on the online menus for Denny's. Another guy we saw on The Price is Right the other day, and he has a couple of other film projects coming out this month. And my mom, Pamela herself, Gia Rose, she has a movie on Amazon Prime right now. So it's really crazy that we have some of these people who are trying to make this their career, and it's like they did great. They all put in their work, and they all love Jason to a point, and that's why they all auditioned for it, because deep, some of them casually love Jason, others are legit Jason fans, and we have conversations in the cast group chat all the time about, oh, hey, and Jason Lives is a very popular one. So but unless you're director James Grimm. But that was a fun debate on film. And but like I said, not every movie's gonna resonate with everybody, but you're gonna find the stuff that you like and the stuff that you have fun with. People might tear this movie apart for being too comedic, too tongue-in-cheek, but he pays homage to everybody. Sheriff Garris, named after director Mick Garris. The town of Carpenter, or was it Carpenter or Carpenter Road, or Craven or Carpenter? Yeah. Well, anyway, Karloff's general store. There's just so much stuff. Jason's a board game. He's the legend, the folklore. He's a board game or a card game, whatever they were playing. You got to find out which cabin Jason's in, and then he shows up and wrecks your shit in a cabin. Well, actually pulls you out, wrecks your shit, and then goes and takes your friend in the cabin and wrecks her shit in the cabin. But, and then you got the kid aspect, I think we're dead meat. And what did you want to grow up when you were, what were you going to grow up and become, And just the Gravedigger. Some people have a strange form of, entertainment. Do they think I'm a fart head? And it cuts to the kids. Yeah. And it's like, so it's just a fun time. And that's the thing. Like, horror doesn't need to be, oh, it's not believable. It's like, okay, well, what part of horror is? What part of Halloween's believable? He's gonna get shot 6 times and still get up and walk away. I mean, come on. I mean, it's escapism, right? That's still what movies are, right? I mean, even in today's world, movies are still escapism at its finest. Give me something fun. Don't give me something that's uber realistic. I don't know how true this is, but apparently they're saying Terrifier 2 is making people barf in theaters, pass out, walk out, call the ambulance, midway through. Whatever. That's fine. But if you're going to do that, it better be a fun fucking movie around it. It better be a good fucking time. Because if it's drab and I'm just like watching it like this the entire time, and then you give me something like that, it's just like, ugh, like, no, fuck all that. Give me something fun. Give me something, yes, scary, but scary can be fun. Scary is supposed to be fun. People like being scared. There's how many people say, "Oh, I'm not a horror fan," but they love going to scare,
Right.
the
It's
fucking Halloween horror nights.
the
Or
general audience, right? Like
it's because you like to get scared. Back in the day, there wasn't horror fans, but some of the same people who aren't necessarily horror fans would still go to Halloween or whatever the main release would be because they like being scared. My uncle who introduced me to horror, he would tell me all the time how his dates or his ex-wives or whatever, they would go with him and they would be like on his arm scared and like this, but they would still like to go with them because they like that. They like getting scared. People like being scared because, yeah, it makes you feel alive. It's like, oh shit, okay, there we go. That's exciting. Like, oh shit. So give me that. Don't just scare me to just scare me and make me. Because if it's too much like that, who's gonna watch it all the time?
right.
If
There's
it's
got to
too
be some
drab, if it's
level of
too,
levity.
yeah, if it's too drab, if it's too serious, I'll take the fun one over the serious one any day. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as I love the originals, the original Nightmare, original Friday, original Halloween, I'll take some of the other ones over that. I'll take this over the original Friday any day. I'll take Dream Warriors over the original most days. And I love the original. And believe me, I'm not trying to bury the original. I'm just saying I'll take the more inventive, fun shit. While still, yeah, the scary stuff is there, but 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna pick the fun shit. I'm gonna pick Scream. I'm gonna pick, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Not a lot of people are, but it's fun. The fucking the numerous Scream knockoffs, the Valentines, the Urban Legend,
The legend. Yeah.
which is another underrated one. I have a great fucking time with that one. And that's the thing. Give me fun. I don't care what. There's a lot of horror movies from the early 2000s. The first Jeepers Creepers. Yes, it has its bad. Obviously the director's a piece of shit. He should get the Alan Smithy treatment. I've been saying this for a while now. That's the name that a director, if he hated what he directed, he would pull. He was like, I would pull. They would pull his name and they would put Alan Smithy. People look. Alan Smithy is actually a pretty prominent director of shit. But anyway, Jeepers Creepers should get the Alan Smithy project. Alan Smithy treatment. Take that fucker's name off because he doesn't deserve it. Take his name off, replace it with Alan Smithy, give it a re-release, scrub his name from the whole thing because that's a classic fucking movie. The second one's good, and that's a lot of fun. But the first one's a lot of fun too. And there's a lot of Scream aspects in there as well. There's a lot of that shit. But like I said, give me something fun that's not drab and I can have a good time with. Because at the end, like I said, everyone just wants to have a good time. Everyone wants to be, like you said earlier, a popcorn movie.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm good with being, a couple jolts here and there while eating popcorn, but I want to enjoy myself. I want to eat my popcorn, drink my Coke, sit there with a big fucking smile on my face, and be satisfied walking out of the theater or seeing it for the first time at home, and being just as satisfied years down the road when I watch it again, or every year, or whenever when it becomes a part of my rotation of whatever franchise or whatever, however it becomes part of my rotation. I want to be able to enjoy it the same, if not more, every time. And this movie is one of those movies for me, because being a horror fan in general, I can appreciate all the Easter eggs. I can appreciate how they brought them back. I can appreciate the characters because the character work is fucking awesome. I can appreciate how it's written, how it's directed, how he added everything, his friends, his wife, the movements of Jason, all how Jason, Corey, or not Corey, CJ Graham isn't my favorite Jason, but he's up there, and he still did a really good job with because he replaced a guy, and so I'm not sure exactly how much prep he had, but that when he got on set, I'm sure he didn't have a whole lot. So again, given what he was given to work with, I thought he did a great job. I kind of wish he would have maybe gotten another shot or two to get him more comfortable in the role. Because like I said, I don't know how much prep he had going into it, but we also got Kane Hodder after this, so I don't know, So, but this is the start of Zombie Jason, which isn't my favorite Jason, but he starts slowing down a lot more. And he doesn't run after this point. He stopped running in part 4. That was the last time he ran, and I love running Jason. So
he's the scariest when he's running.
Yeah, exactly. He's a lot more. It's just, that's terrifying. He's 6'4", 6'5" dude, just barreling at you like that. Like, ooh. And 3 and 4 are great examples of that. But I think they compared him to, this is like the Terminator Jason. Like, he was just locked in, zeroed in, and that.
Right.
And like I said, I like that. I like Zombie Jason to a point. I just wish that a few things here and there were different. So with that, it's not my favorite Jason performance, and that's weird because it's not one of my favorite Jason performances in this movie, but everything else almost diminishes that for me, which that sounds kind of weird, being a Jason fan and being like, the Jason in this movie is not one of its strong points, and it's really not, but he's still pretty solid, and that's saying a lot for this movie. That even above subpar Jason can make for one of the best in the franchise. Yeah. And that's just the star power of Jason, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Right. No. With that being said, man, I want to show off the trailer, man. I really do, because you got some people in here that we know. Brayden, who was my neighbor.
Oh, really?
He lived like right above me, back in Illinois. So I'm gonna go ahead and show off this trailer for My Special Boy.
This thing in the woods today that I saw that just kind of sparked an old memory.
You remember, don't you, honey? You remember how they treated you? And worst of all, how they treated me.
How'd that feel, Mama's boy?
They deserve to die.
And so,
It looks good.
dude, I love that you guys brought your own spin to Jason too. The way it looks isn't like Never Hike Alone or Vengeance or what's the other one? They're the one that Tony Faulkner did. I'm blanking on the name.
Voorhees.
Voorhees. Like this is very much your own thing. It's cool and I love it. I love what you guys did. What's the inspiration behind the mask? The change of the mask?
Just trying to stand out and do something different, but also kind of stay true to what we were going for with the outfit, which was just ultimately just something different, something fresh, kind of minimalistic, you know.
Right.
I mean, because he goes from coveralls and plaid shirt, and sack head, to this. So we wanted something that was, like I said, minimalistic, and the chevrons on the mask. Actually, where is one? Let me grab the mask actually, and I'll show you guys.
Oh yeah,
what I'm talking about.
let's see it. Oh man, it's been a great episode though, man. I really like that we can bring on, like I said, different guests that have something unique to tell us, and especially with this episode in Chad, it fits perfectly with My Special Boy coming out and Jason Lives. So, plus I love this movie. I think it's such a good movie. That's sick.
There he is, and I mean, like it's pretty thick. And Michael Lawrence, we call him Doc. He's the doctor. He designed this. He came up with this. He came up with the hood, the look of Jason, that you'll see in the film that I wear underneath. But yeah, we just wanted to go something, different. And his chevrons are actually inspired by his high school logo. His high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's a thunderbolt, but I mean, it's just something different, and I saw it and I was like, "Holy, that's pretty impressive." Even if I wasn't part of this movie, it's pretty cool.
But that's what I love about it, man. It's like it's Jason, but it's a personal spin that you guys have brought to it.
Yeah,
right? Like
and
it's awesome.
Thank you. And I think that's what I was saying earlier. It's kind of like a light reboot in a way. So if that's how people see this, again, I'm all for it, man. I mean, if we could sell it on that, I'm all for it. And I'm excited for people to see it.
And I'm excited to see it. And it's coming out October 28th.
Yep.
That's next week, just in time for Halloween weekend.
Yep.
And we're going to give our thoughts because I really do want to check this out.
Hell yeah, I can't wait.
And I want to urge everybody to seek it out because the trailer looks great. Chad is involved. Braden Timmons is involved. Man, hell of a job to you guys, man. It looks like you knocked it out of the park for real.
Thank you. Thank you. It's something me and James started 2.5 years ago-ish. We were actually working on a Halloween fan film that he did. And I had known him for years, and we were in the same fantasy football league. And we had never met, but we were in the same league for years. And I tried to, years ago, I tried to get a trade. He had a player, one of my Chiefs players. I'm a Kansas City fan. Just like Brettman from Goodreal.
Goodreal, Brettman.
But So anyway, I tried to get one of my players from him, and he just, no matter what I offered, he just would flat out deny me. I'm like, motherfucker, son of a bitch. All right, fine. So I made sure if I ever got like a Packer player, I would never trade it to him because he's a Packers fan. But just like, all right, man, whatever. But anyway, the guy who started the league has been my best friend since first grade, and he worked with James. So he's like, yeah, man, he's working on a Halloween fan film. Why don't you hit him up? And I did, and I'm like, hey, man, you ever need someone to play Michael or anything? Hit me up. I'm down to, I'm more than love to do it. And he's like, well, I already have a Michael, but you want to roll? I'm like, yeah, which turned into 3 different roles, which was cool. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was like, okay, I like this. I want to do more of this. And he's like, well, I kind of have an idea for a Friday 13th fan film. If you want to help me develop that. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So from there, he brought his vision, his idea for it. And me and him went back and forth and came up with the overall story and script. And it changed numerous times. We had different guys come in and out and add their flavor to it. And we kept some of that, took some of it out. Braden then, came in. Braden was always part of it as a producer, but he became much more as it went on. He became the star of our movie. He became the screenwriter of our movie. So he cleaned up a lot of the rough drafts of the scripts and cleaned up the dialogue and polished off some things. And then he, ultimately became a co-director on the project. So he and James are co-directors and this, took a life of its own. I don't think James was trying to go this big. We were going to really kind of do it the same we were doing with the Halloween one, and kind of just doing it with no budget, just out of our own pockets, probably on a friggin' cell phone, just for fun. And then he just was like, what if we tried to make a fan film,
right.
Obviously we can't do as good as like a Never Hike, maybe not as good as that quality. We can do something that's halfway there. I'd say, who knows?
I think you guys got something though that, to me, I've been on a lot of film sets, and I know how the game goes, and it looks great, and you can tell the effort is there, and the makeup on you is there,
Yeah.
and the originality of doing something different. Because what he did with Never Hike Alone, he jumped onto the scene, and all of a sudden, so many people were doing Friday fan films, and
Right.
it's very easy to ape what he did.
Right.
And I've seen some people.
Well, I don't think he was the first to do it, but he was the first to do it.
He was like the first to take it to the stratosphere.
Right. Yeah.
Fan films go all the way back to Batman versus Predator, which was like a big one in the mid 2000s that just had a great budget and effects. And Dave McRae did his in the mid 2010s with Halloween.
Yeah.
But the way Vince did it really showed that you can have bring everybody that anybody that's talented, actors, whatever it is, and sell it to the fans. They will fund it, and the audience will be there. And I feel like that's what you guys have done too. Take a page out of that book, but make it your own.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that's what you guys are doing here and the way it looks.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very basic, generic story. It's a Friday 13th fan film. So we're not trying to do anything spectacular, off the wall, stuff. It's a generic, back to basics Friday 13th fan film,
right?
With a few different things thrown in there, and some might have caught that from the trailer, and some probably have already put that together. Being super fans that people are. You see Pamela step out behind me in a scene in the trailer. And it's like, oh, what's that about? Well, tune in. it's stuff that we ultimately, as a group, were like, this is something that, despite all of our different tastes, like I said, my favorites lives. I think Braden's. I think his favorite is part 2. James, I think, is part 4, and a couple others that kind of vary, But it's so great that despite all of our different tastes, we were able to come together and be like, this is the best interpretation of Pamela that we can do and that we wanted to see in the actual franchise. And again, that's the great thing about being a horror fan and having the opportunity to make a fan film. I mean, like I said, Never Hike wasn't the first to do it. The best to do it up until that point, arguably, still the best to do it.
Right.
And that inspired tons of fans. Tons. Doesn't matter whether you're, horror fan or not. But you got so many to choose from. You got Star Wars fan films, which expand on their never-ending lore. I mean, their graphic novels or book series. Some of the book series from back in the day were great. You had all these branching different storylines that take place in different timelines and different parts of that galaxy, and this fan films help explore that. And I think it was Camp Blood, Josh from Camp Blood. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna buy. I plan on buying Blu-rays of every single Jason fan film and making a box set. I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool. Like, holy shit! Like, obviously there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously there's
awesome,
people. I mean, it is. It's a cool feeling. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't excited or a little bit excited that, we have our premiere with our cast and crew and our family and friends this Sunday, and I'm nervous as hell for that. And then we have the world premiere a week from Friday on YouTube for everyone to see our interpretation and what we wanted as fan film. Wanted as fans. So it's and like I said, you learn to respect even the bad films, because like I said, nobody sets out to make a bad film. Nobody. Stuff may happen that may affect certain things in a film, and I've learned that recently, but sometimes some things happen and you have no control over it, and you just kind of have to say okay and move on. But ultimately, this is something that everybody that was a part of it put, their love into it. So hopefully it comes across on everyone's screens come October 28th, Halloween weekend. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it's opened my eyes to filmmaking, and it's a lot of fun. It really is.
Man, that's awesome, man.
So,
And I'm excited for the movie. I know we're gonna talk about it probably in the Thursday show, or maybe the Thursday show. We're gonna talk about it, because I'm excited to see it. Hold me to it, because I really am. I want to see Braden's acting in this. I want to see. Obviously, I got to see you as Jason, because that's the big part right there, man.
yeah,
it's exciting for you guys for sure.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I was, very confident. Everyone's confident, like, oh yeah, I can do it. No problem. I can play this. I can play that. No problem. It's just a guy in a mask. No, it's not. It's not.
Right.
It's the little nuance, little nuances, the little things here and there, and you guys might notice a few things here and there, like a couple cane turns or something, but there you can kind of tell which ones we're having fun with, and we had fun with all of them, but there's a couple where it just comes out. It kind of comes across where it's like, okay, we see the meaning behind that, and that was pretty cool. So, I'm excited for people to see it. I'm nervous as hell, but it's just another, like I said, fan interpretation. And if people want to go deep into that, look at all these fan films as just alternate, timelines, alternate realities. They're all just dreams in the end. They're all movies. So
Right.
that's what it is. It's just it's what Halloween was supposed to be, anthology series, but this is just an anthology series that features Jason, so
Yeah, I'm with you on it, man.
there'll be something out there for everybody. And hopefully what we tried to do in this, people see and are like, okay, that's a cool concept. That's fucking cool. Because
Right.
again, it's just something we would have loved to see. And people will pick up on that pretty early on, I think.
Man, well, it's going to be an exciting time. That's October 28th for everybody that checks out this episode. I want to thank Chad for coming on and this awesome pick, because I was really happy somebody picked Jason Lives. You could have picked any of them. I'm glad it was this one.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. This it's a very fun film, and I wish more people loved it. I don't quite get the hate from some people, but it is what, like I said, different strokes for different folks, I guess. Especially if you're Michael and Corey. But one more thing I wanted to add to my special boy that I forgot. Gia Rose, who plays Pamela, mom, that I've called her ever since. Every time I see her, Mom. But people have already mentioned, and I know people are going to mention it even more. Wait, Pam's a redhead in this? Yes, Pamela is a redhead. In one, she is an older lady who could have lost her hair color. The way you see Pamela in this film, is what Jason remembers her as.
Okay.
And I'll just say that. So it might make sense a little later when you see it, but
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
Hey, I like
Spoilers.
redheads.
Well, there you have it. Pamela Voorhees, the redhead. For all the ginger lovers out there,
Yeah.
that's your kink. I mean,
Gingers have no soul.
right.
Yeah, Cartman.
Chad, what else you got coming up, man? Any other appearances? Any other channels besides the movie?
Behind the Mask on Matt Facci's Facci Cinema and James Grimm's channel. It's a dual show.
Okay.
Every other couple weeks, I think we do that. I think it's like twice a month or something. And then just guest appearances. I might have a couple other things coming up, but they're just early stages right now. So we're seeing what's happening. So might be more, might be less. Never know.
Cool, man. I want to thank you again for coming on and talking about your flick, as well as the movie that you picked as well. But we're so excited for My Special Boy, and I'm gonna make sure to see it. I know Gabe is too. Gabe, you got anything else to add before we start wrapping up here?
Hey, if you ever need a 6 foot tall, bald headed Mexican for anything, just give me a call.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Argyle 20 years later.
There
Stranger
you go.
Things. Let's do it, dude.
Hey, let's do it.
We'll both be working at a pizza place. I work at a pizza joint in real life, so it works.
Argyle. It's like Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
There you go. Argyle. I want to thank everybody in the chat that tuned in as well. I think Zoe Crawford, I see you in there. Travis, you stuck around for a little bit. Everybody, man, for tuning in and showing our guests their appreciation. In terms of what's coming up for us, just the regular show on Thursday. I think we're going to try to get out more of our spoiler discussions for upcoming blockbusters, as well as next week's My Favorite Horror Movie. But that's about it. Gabe, anything else you want to highlight?
No, I'm good for tonight. Waiting on our Thursday show, and can't wait to see my special boy next on the 28th. So
My special boy.
And thank
October
you.
28th.
Appreciate that, guys. And thank you guys for having me. This was a fucking blast.
thanks for
It
coming
was a
on.
blast, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Anybody else at home, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share if you can. And we will see you on the Thursday show. So everybody have a great night. Thank you.